My name is Jack, and I live in a small town with my wife, Ellie. Recently, Ellie's online shopping has increased dramatically, and she is always looking forward to the arrival of the parcels. Although I was suspicious, I didn't pay it much mind. Until one day, I came home early, and what I saw made me feel like I'd been hit by lightning. She was on the sofa with the delivery man, acting intimately. At that moment, my world collapsed, and my anger erupted like a volcano. I rushed over angrily and struggled with the delivery man. I was filled with pain and indignation. Where would this marriage lead? Eli, the woman who had made me fall at first sight, her beauty had left an indelible mark on my heart. Her long blonde hair, as if kissed by the sun, shimmers with an enchanting radiance. When the breeze gently caresses her, her hair flows naturally like a waterfall, exuding a faint lavender fragrance, her favorite scent. Every time, I embrace her from behind and bury my face in her hair. The soft touch and fresh fragrance make me feel incredibly at ease and happy. Her eyes are the most enchanting I have ever seen. Her blue eyes are like deep lakes, clear and mysterious. When she looks at me, her gaze seems to pierce my soul and I can't help myself. I remember the first time we met, in a small town cafe. She was sitting quietly in the corner, and when our eyes met, time seemed to stop for a moment. From her eyes, I saw tenderness, kindness, and a vision for the future. At that moment, I knew I was in love with this woman. Her figure is perfect. Her graceful figure is smooth and elegant. Her long, straight legs have a charming radiance that glitters in the sunlight. She likes to wear simple dresses, and the hem of the dress sways gently with her steps, as if she is dancing with every step. Her waist is slender, not even a handful, and every time I put my arms around her waist, I can feel the warmth of her body and a slight trembling, a unique understanding between us. Our love is like a romantic movie, full of sweet and warm memories. We often go for walks together by the sea, with the afterglow of the sunset sprinkling us and stretching our shadows long. Holding hands, we walk slowly along the coastline, the sand beneath our feet soft and warm. We will pick up shells together, looking for those unique and colorful treasures, and then show them to each other, sharing our joy. Sometimes, we would lie on the beach, watching the gorgeous sunset in the sky, listening to the sound of the waves, and feeling each other's heartbeat. Picnics in the park were also our favorite. We would bring along carefully prepared food and a blanket, find a quiet and beautiful corner, and enjoy the good times. Ellie would make all kinds of delicious snacks, and I was filled with happiness watching her prepare the food attentively. We would eat the food while chatting, sharing each other's dreams and worries. Sometimes we would play games together, and the laughter echoed through the park, attracting the attention of those around us. Those were the best days of my life, and they are some of my most treasured memories. We celebrated each other's birthdays together, and every moment was filled with love and joy. We would go to the movies together, and then discuss the plot on the way home, sharing our feelings with each other. We would go on trips together, exploring new places and experiencing different cultures and landscapes. However, all of this beauty has now been shattered by her betrayal. When I saw her with the delivery man, I felt as if I had suddenly woken up from a beautiful dream, and the reality in front of me was so cruel. I couldn't help but ask myself, where did the Ellie who once loved me go? How did the woman who made a vow of eternal love with me become what she is now? I began to recall the bits and pieces of our relationship, trying to find the slightest hint that might have led to her betrayal. Had I been too busy lately and neglected her feelings? Or was there something wrong with our relationship? I remembered the moments when we argued over trivial matters, and the times when I didn't understand her or care about her in time. Perhaps, unbeknownst to me, the distance between us had been growing. I remember one time when she was sick and I couldn't be there for her because of work. When I finally arrived home, she was lying in bed alone, looking tired and disappointed. I simply gave her a few words of comfort and then went back to work. Now I think about it, I know she must have felt very lonely and helpless at that moment. Another time we planned to go on a trip together, but because of an important meeting I had to cancel. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her disappointment. I always used work as an excuse to ignore her feelings and our relationship. Perhaps it was these little things that gradually made her lose confidence in me and made her heart waver. And the appearance of the courier may have just been a trigger, allowing her long-suppressed emotions to find an outlet. I looked at the photos of us together, those moments of radiant smiles, and now they seemed so ironic. I couldn't accept this reality, that the woman who once loved me so much would betray me. But no matter how painful and angry I felt, I couldn't escape from this truth. I decided to give our relationship another chance, to find the old Ellie and the love we once had. I knew it would be a difficult road, but I was willing to work hard and make sacrifices for our love. I believed that as long as we were honest and understanding with each other, we would be able to regain the beauty we had lost. I began to recall the scene of our first date. It was a sunny afternoon, and we were walking in the garden of the town. She was wearing a white dress and looked as beautiful as an angel. We held hands and talked about our dreams and the future. I remember I told her at the time that I would give her a happy future and make her the happiest woman in the world. Now, those vows still ring in my ears, but our love has reached the brink. I know I can't let her go again. I have to win her heart back and make her fall in love with me all over again. I start planning our reunion. I want to surprise her and show her that my love for her has never changed. I buy her favorite flowers, book the restaurant where we had our first date, and carefully prepare a gift. I hope that when we meet again, we can rekindle the fire of love between us. I was incredibly nervous as I stood in the restaurant, waiting for her to arrive. I didn't know how she would react when she saw me, and I had no idea what the future held for us. But I was ready to face whatever the outcome might be. Finally, she appeared. She was wearing a black dress and looked a little haggard. When she saw me, a flash of surprise and hesitation crossed her eyes. I walked up to her, handed her the flowers, and said softly, "Ellie, I want to talk to you." She took the flowers and nodded, and we walked into the restaurant together. We sat in the same seats we had sat in before, and everything around us was still so familiar. I looked at her and my heart was full of complex emotions: anger, pain, and deep love. I began to pour out my heart to her, telling her how much I loved her and that I couldn't live without her. I also confessed to her my mistakes. I knew that in the past I had neglected her feelings and had not given her enough care and love. I hoped that she could forgive me and that we could start again. Ellie listened quietly, and tears gradually appeared in her eyes. She told me that she was actually also in pain, and that she had not deliberately betrayed me. She just felt that in our relationship, she was becoming more and more lonely and confused. The appearance of the courier made her feel a long-lost kind of care and warmth, and she temporarily lost herself. We talked for a long time, pouring out all our grievances and dissatisfaction. We finally understood each other's feelings and realized where the problem lay. We decided to start again, give each other a chance, and regain the love we had lost. Since then, we have started a new life. We cherish each other more and work harder to maintain our relationship. We go for walks together, go to the movies together, and travel together to regain the beauty we had lost. Ailey's smile gradually returned, and she regained her former beauty and confidence. After experiencing this storm, our love has become even stronger and more precious. I believe that our future will be full of happiness and joy, because we have learned how to love and cherish. After the initial anger and pain, my emotions gradually calmed down. Anger doesn't solve anything. I needed to figure out what was really going on, what secret Ellie and the delivery man had been keeping. So I decided to investigate, trying to find out the truth from the seemingly ordinary details. I first turned to Ellie's online shopping history. On her computer, I gently swiped the mouse to browse her recent purchase list. I expected to see some daily household items, or her favorite clothes, cosmetics, and the like, but the truth surprised me. The purchase history contained many strange items, such as expensive men's watches, custom-made high-end shirts, and some sports equipment. None of these things were obviously for me or for household use. My heart sank, and an ominous feeling came over me. It was very likely that Ellie had bought these things for the delivery man. At this thought, my hands could not help but clench into fists, with my fingernails digging deep into the palms of my hands, leaving red marks. I suppressed my anger and continued to check, hoping to find more clues. In addition to these strange items, I also discovered that the frequency of Ellie's online shopping had suddenly increased significantly in recent months. In the past, although she also liked to shop online, she only bought things every once in a while, but now there was a new delivery almost every few days. And every time she received a delivery, her face was filled with a kind of excitement and anticipation that I had never seen before. It was an expression like she was waiting for something or someone important. I opened Ellie's phone again, a little apprehensive. After all, this is her privacy. But at the moment, I couldn't care less. I had to know the truth. After unlocking the phone, I went directly to her text messages. Sure enough, among the many text messages, one from the courier stood out. I trembled as I tapped to open the message. The content of the message was extremely ambiguous, and the lines revealed an intimacy that transcended an ordinary relationship. The courier called Ellie baby in the message and said he was looking forward to the next time they met, while Ellie's reply was also full of tenderness. Seeing these words, my vision went dark for a moment, and I almost couldn't stand up straight. I continued to read through their chat history, from the initial simple greetings to the sweet nothings later on. Every sentence was like a sharp knife, stabbing my heart. It turned out that their relationship had been going on for some time, and I had been kept in the dark. I took screenshots of the chat history and saved them as evidence. Then, I decided to follow this clue and find the deliverman's place of residence. Through Ellie's online shopping records, I found the courier company where the courier worked, and from the company's information, I found his home address. When I stood in front of the courier's house, I was filled with nervousness and anger. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. After a while, the door opened, and the courier saw me, a flash of surprise and panic crossing his face. But soon, he regained his composure and asked coldly what I was doing there. I didn't answer his question, but rushed straight into the room. The room was simply furnished, but in one corner I saw some familiar items. They were Ellie's scarf, earrings, and a jacket she usually liked to wear. Seeing these things, my anger flared up again. I turned around and grabbed the courier by the collar, questioning him about what these things were doing there. The deliverman tried to get away from me, but I held on to him tightly and refused to let go. He began to become a little panicked and stuttered as he spoke. He said that these things were gifts from Ellie to him and that they truly loved each other. Hearing his words made me even angrier, and I punched him in the face. The delivery man fell to the ground. He covered his nose, which was bleeding. He looked at me menacingly and said that it was useless for me to hit him, that Ellie loved him, not me. I looked at him, filled with disgust and anger. I told him that I would not let him get away with it so easily, that I would uncover the truth and make him pay for what he had done. After leaving the deliverman's place, I returned home. Looking at the empty room, I felt a heavy burden. Ellie had betrayed me, and that was an indisputable fact. But I always felt that things were not as simple as they seemed. Did the deliverman really just have a simple relationship with Ellie? Or was there some other conspiracy behind it? I began to re-examine all the clues and try to find the connections. I remembered something that had happened recently at work. I was in charge of an important project that was crucial to the company's development and had also attracted the attention of some competitors. Could it be that my business rivals had taken advantage of Ellie's feelings to achieve their goal of undermining me? The thought made me shudder. If that was the case, then I would not only have to face my wife's betrayal, but also the conspiracy from my business rivals. I felt unprecedented pressure, but at the same time, it strengthened my determination to uncover the truth. In the next few days, while continuing to investigate the relationship between Ellie and the courier and collect more evidence, I also kept a close eye on the internal dynamics of the company, trying to find out who was behind it all. I knew that it would be a tough battle, but I could not back down. I had to fight for justice for myself and my family. In the course of my investigation, I encountered many difficulties. The courier began to guard against me and no longer made mistakes easily. And Ellie also became more indifferent to me and was reluctant to say more than a few words to me. But I did not give up. Through various channels, I finally found some new clues. I discovered that while the courier was dating Ellie, he also had frequent contact with a mysterious phone number. I found out the owner of this phone number through some means and discovered that it was actually an executive of a company that competes with my company. This further confirmed my suspicion that this was likely a carefully planned conspiracy. I decided to start with this business executive and investigate the truth further. I began to follow him to learn about his whereabouts and daily activities. In the process of following him, I discovered that he often met with some strangers, as if plotting something. I carefully collected this evidence, hoping to uncover the full picture of this conspiracy as soon as possible. As my investigation deepened, I got closer and closer to the truth, but the danger was also gradually approaching. I knew that my opponents would not let me go easily, and they might resort to extreme measures to stop me. But I had no turning back. I had to persevere until the day the truth came to light. I believed that justice would ultimately triumph over evil, and I would definitely be able to protect myself and my family, and make those who hurt me get the punishment they deserved. After discovering those intimate items of Ellie's at the courier's residence, I was filled with anger and unwillingness, and at the same time, my determination to uncover the truth completely was strengthened. From then on, I began to closely follow the courier's every move, hoping to find out more about the secrets behind this betrayal from his actions. Every day, I followed him carefully, like a shadow, without him noticing. His life seemed uneventful, going to work at the delivery company every day and delivering packages on time. But I knew that there must be something hidden behind him. Finally, after several days of continuous tracking, I discovered an anomaly. That day, after finishing work for the day, the courier did not go straight home as usual. He rode his electric bicycle around the streets of the small town, seemingly deliberately avoiding someone or shaking off a tail that might be following him. With my familiarity with the roads of the small town, I was always able to keep a safe distance from him and not let him know of my presence. Eventually, he stopped in front of a remote cafe. I watched from a distance as he entered the cafe, filled with curiosity and tension. I found a hidden place nearby and waited, keeping a close eye on the entrance to the cafe. About 10 minutes later, a woman walked into the cafe. This woman I had never seen before. She was dressed in a professional black outfit, wearing a pair of sunglasses, tall and cool. I had a strong feeling that this woman must have an unusual relationship with the courier. I decided to take a chance and go in to find out what was going on. I walked into the cafe and found a seat in a position where I could keep an eye on them while being relatively far away from them. The waitress came over and I casually ordered a cup of coffee, but kept my eyes on their movements. The courier and the woman were sitting in the corner. They both looked serious, as if they were discussing something important. I strained to hear what they were saying. At first, their voices were low and I could only catch a few indistinct words. But as the conversation progressed, their voices gradually grew louder. "How are things going?" the woman asked, her voice cold. "Everything is going according to plan. That Jack is already in a tizzy," the courier replied proudly. "Good. As long as we can make him mess up on this project, we'll be successful," the woman said with a hint of ruthlessness in her tone. Hearing this, I was shocked. Turned out that this was really a conspiracy against me. My business rival had come up with such a vicious plan to use Ellie to undermine me in order to defeat me on that important project. I continued to listen to their conversation, hoping to get more information. "Is the woman still under control? Don't let anything go wrong," the woman asked again. "Don't worry. She is completely under my spell and obeys my every command," the courier said confidently, with a slight smile of contempt on his face. Hearing the courier belittle Ellie like this filled my heart with anger, but I forced myself to hold back and continue listening. They discussed some details of the next plan, and I silently took this information to heart. After leaving the cafe, I set out to investigate the identity of this mysterious woman. Through various channels, I finally learned that she was a senior planner for my competitor's company, specializing in planning and scrupulous business tactics. This plan to use Ellie to undermine me was masterminded by her. I felt both anger and remorse. I was angry that my opponent would stoop so low as to hurt my family in order to achieve her goal, and I felt remorse that I had not noticed Ellie's changes in time and had not given her enough care and love, thus giving my enemy an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. Ellie had been used by them and had become a victim of this business struggle, and I had also fallen into an unprecedented crisis as a result. I knew that the most urgent task was to find a way to turn the situation around. I couldn't let my opponent's plot succeed, and I couldn't let Ellie continue to be kept in the dark. I began to think about a strategy. The first thing I had to do was let Ellie know the truth and make her understand that she had been used. I returned home and looked at Ellie. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. She was sitting on the sofa with a vacant expression on her face, as if she were thinking about something. I took a deep breath, walked up to her and sat down. "Ellie, I know everything," I said softly. Ellie looked up at me, her eyes flashing with surprise and fear. "What are you talking about?" Her voice trembled a little. I told her everything I had done, from following the delivery men and overhearing their conversation to investigating the mysterious woman and the business rival. After hearing what I had to say, Ellie's face turned pale. Her eyes filled with shock and remorse. I was actually used by them." Ellie covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. I looked at her, and although I was still angry, I felt more heartache. I gently patted her shoulder and said, "It's too late to regret now. We must find a way to deal with this and not let their plot succeed." Ellie nodded and dried her tears. We began to discuss our countermeasures together. We knew that, in order to fight back against our opponents, we had to collect enough evidence to prove their conspiracy. So over the next few days, Ellie and I began to secretly collect evidence. We used various methods to obtain the call records between the courier and the mysterious woman, the content of the text messages, and some of the documents they used to plot their conspiracy. We encountered many difficulties in the process of collecting evidence. Our opponents seemed to have sensed our actions and began to obstruct us in various ways. They sent people to follow us, tried to prevent us from collecting evidence, and even threatened us. But we were not intimidated by them. We acted more cautiously and finally managed to collect enough evidence. Looking at the evidence in my hands, I knew that we already had the capital to fight back. But how to use this evidence to make our opponent pay and at the same time protect ourselves and our family requires careful planning. Ally and I sat in the living room with the lights dimmed, our expressions serious and determined. This battle is not over yet, and we must do our best for our future, for our dignity, and for the love we once had. We believe that as long as we are united, we will be able to overcome our opponent, get out of this crisis, and regain our happy lives. After learning the whole truth, I felt a mixture of emotions. Ellie, who was kept in the dark, became a pawn in the hands of my business rivals. In this conspiracy, not only was my family facing disintegration, but my career was also in jeopardy. But at the moment, what I cared about most was how to face Ellie and our marriage, which was already riddled with problems. I returned home and found Ellie sitting on the sofa, her eyes staring blankly ahead. She looked extremely haggard. When she saw me, a flash of panic crossed her eyes before she lowered her head, afraid to make eye contact. I slowly walked over to her and sat down. Taking a deep breath, I said, "Ellie, I figured everything out. It was all a conspiracy." Ellie looked up sharply, her eyes full of shock and expectation. She asked eagerly, "Really? You know everything? So, what should we do?" Her voice trembled slightly, and her hands clenched involuntarily. I laid out the evidence I had collected before her, and told her in detail everything I had found out. From the collusion between the courier and the mysterious woman, to the sinister intentions of the business rival. Ellie's face grew paler and paler as she listened, and tears welled in her eyes. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. I thought he really loved me," Ellie said chokingly, tears welling up in her eyes. "How could I be so stupid? Being used by them without realizing it, and hurting you." Looking at her face full of remorse and pain, my heart ached. The once beautiful, gentle wife was now so disheveled because of this conspiracy. I reached out and gently wiped away the tears on her face, saying, "Ellie, things have come to this. We can't just wallow in pain and self-blame. We have to find a way to deal with this. We can't let their conspiracy succeed. Ellie nodded, and a glimmer of hope returned to her eyes. But then, a practical problem immediately came to the fore. What was to become of our marriage? I looked at Ellie, torn between conflicting emotions. I was deeply hurt by her betrayal, but now that I knew she had been used, my feelings for her had not completely faded. Jack, I know I've done wrong. You can punish me, but please don't leave me. Ellie grabbed my hand tightly, her eyes full of pleading. I really know I was wrong, and I'm willing to do anything to make up for my mistakes. I was in a deep struggle. Leaving her would hurt. After all, we had so many good memories. But not leaving her, her betrayal was like a thorn in my heart. I remembered the time we spent walking on the beach together, and the surprise she had prepared for my birthday. After some intense soul-searching, I finally made a decision. I looked at Ellie and said seriously, Ellie, I've decided to forgive you. We'll face this together. But the problems between us need to be resolved gradually in the days to come. Ellie's eyes flashed with surprise. She hugged me tightly and choked back her sobs. Thank you, Jack. I will definitely cherish this opportunity and I won't let you down again. From then on, Ellie and I began to work together to gather more evidence and prepare to fight back against our enemies. We knew that this evidence would not only give us an advantage in this business battle, but also allow those who plotted the conspiracy to be punished as they deserved. We carefully studied every piece of evidence, not missing a single detail. Ellie also became extremely proactive, wanting to make up for the mistakes she had made through her own efforts. We contacted some reliable friends and sought their help, while also carefully avoiding being detected by our opponents. We encountered many difficulties in the process. Our opponents seemed to sense our intention to fight back and began to obstruct us in every way. They sent people to follow us, tried to seize the evidence in our hands, and even threatened us. But we were not intimidated, and our determination to fight back was even stronger. Once, while we were out collecting evidence, we were surrounded by a group of unidentified men. They viciously demanded evidence from us, and I held Ellie close and warned them not to make a move. Just as the tension was at its peak, our friends, who we had contacted in advance, arrived in time to drive the men away. After this terrifying encounter, we became even more cautious. We chose more secluded places to meet and pass on information, and ensured the safety of evidence. Finally, through our unremitting efforts, we collected enough powerful evidence to expose the conspiracy of our opponents. We organized the evidence and handed it over to the relevant departments and the media. Soon, the matter caused a huge uproar. My business opponents were pushed to the forefront. Their ugly deeds were made public, and they were condemned by society and punished by law. And Ellie and I gradually regained our trust in each other during this crisis. Our relationship became even stronger after this ordeal. Ellie proved to me her determination with her actions, and she began to care more about my work and life. Our relationship gradually returned to normal. On a sunny weekend, Ellie and I returned to the beach we used to go to often. We held hands and strolled on the beach, feeling the sea breeze. Seeing the smile return to Ellie's face, I knew that we had finally emerged from the darkness and ushered in a new life. Jack, thank you for your tolerance and understanding. Ellie stopped in her tracks and looked at me deeply. I will spend my whole life making up for the mistakes I have made and loving you well. I gently embraced her and said, Ellie, let bygones be bygones. We need to look to the future together. I believe that our lives will get better and better. The waves lapped the beach, making a sound as if they were cheering for our new life. After this storm, we have come to cherish each other even more. And we have also learned that in the face of difficulties, as long as we work together, there is no insurmountable obstacle. Our love has been purified and strengthened in this storm. The road ahead is still long, but we will walk bravely together and embrace our happiness.